This table isn't meant for someone like you." The words fell across the ballroom like a slap made of crystal, shattering in the silence and chandelier light. The music still played, the strings still glided through elegant notes, but around table number 1, the air collapsed, as if someone had suddenly cut the sound. A waiter pouring champagne froze mid-air, the golden liquid trembling at the rim before slipping onto the white linen. At the center of the VIP table, Dr. Maya Carter sat still back straight, her hands resting lightly on the burnt orange satin of her gown. The fabric hugged her waist before flowing softly down each subtle movement, catching the light like golden embers beneath the chandeliers. A delicate gold chain glimmered at her neck whenever she turned her head, though right now she didn't move at all. Only her eyes did. They lifted slowly and locked on the woman who had just spoken. No outrage, no fear. Only calm, cold clarity. Across from her lounged Vanessa Kensington, about 30, the only daughter of Tycoon Gregory Kensington, reclining in her chair as if the entire table belonged to her. Her ivory gown shimmered with diamond accents at her neck, wrists, and ears, the light tracing her edges like a halo made of wealth rather than worth. Her nude painted nails tapped gently against the stem of her champagne glass, a quiet rhythmic sound, like a clock counting down to a social disaster. The smile on her lips was sugar-sweet, but her eyes glowed with cruel delight. "Table number 1 is for honored guests, major sponsors and dignitaries," Vanessa said clearly, her tone unwavering. "I'm afraid there's been some mistake." To Maya's left, Senator Charles Whitfield, a man in his 60s with neatly silvered hair, shifted uncomfortably in his chair. He had witnessed countless heated debates in the Senate, yet he sensed something different here. Not disagreement, but humiliation. "Perhaps we should," he began, gently trying to ease the tension. "No, this is the time to be clear." Vanessa interrupted, turning toward the event manager, standing a few steps away in his black suit with an earpiece. "Could you please escort her to the regular sponsors section? That would be more appropriate." The manager hesitated. He had seen the name printed on the card in front of Maya. Dr. Maya Carter, gold letters on ivory paper, marked Guest of Honor. But the icy authority in Vanessa's eyes, coupled with the Kensington family's influence, mentioned in every pre-event briefing, made him swallow hard. "Mum," he started, his voice faltering. "Perhaps we should confirm with, she's not with our group." Vanessa cut in her smile, intact, but her tone sharp as glass. "This table has a specific guest list, and I don't recall approving this name." She didn't even glance at the card, just waved her hand dismissively, as if brushing off something insignificant. At the edge of the table, 27-year-old photographer Liam Brooks tightened his grip on the camera hanging from his neck. He hadn't been invited into this exchange, but his lens was already there. Through it, he saw the contrast, Vanessa's tense jaw and condescending glare on one side, Maya's calm stillness on the other, her eyes dark as a lake at night, still and bottomless. He pressed the shutter. The soft click cut through the air like a comma in a sentence. In Liam's mind, one thought flickered. Something's happening. This isn't just a sparkling gala shot anymore. This is a moment. Maya heard every word, felt every gaze crawling across her skin like streaks of frost. Curiosity, surprise, a touch of pity from someone nearby, and beneath it all the unspoken question, who is she? Her heart wasn't silent. It beat slowly, heavily, each pulse echoing memories of other rooms where she'd once been asked, "Are you sure you're in the right place?" This area is for executives only, or recruiting is outside miss. She had stood before enough slammed doors to recognize the scent of disdain, even when disguised by expensive perfume. But here tonight, she was no longer the sophomore intern. She was seated at table number 1 in Manhattan at a gala bearing the Kensington name. And the words "not meant for someone like you" had been spoken aloud before hundreds of witnesses. Maya took a slow breath, though no one noticed her chest rise. Only a faint motion, the tip of her finger brushing the edge of a black clutch beside her plate. She didn't open it. She didn't need to. She knew exactly what was inside, and that she could reach for it any time. "It's okay, Maya." A voice from years ago echoed in her memory, the voice of her mother. A woman once thrown out of a store for not being the right kind of customer. You don't have to fight to prove you belong. Just remember who you are. She remembered. Perfectly. It's awkward when uninvited guests seat themselves at the VIP table, Vanessa said sweetly to her friend, beside her loud enough to travel across the circle of glass and candlelight. Both women laughed softly, the sound sharp as a struck crystal. A woman at a nearby table lifted her head, whispering to her date. Who is she talking about? The question hung in the air. Senator Whitfield set down his utensils. Gently, fingers interlaced before him. He looked at Vanessa, then at Maya. In his eyes, beyond discomfort, flickered something else, danger. He had seen many kinds of power, lawful, financial, social, and he knew when one of them was being insulted in the wrong place, the consequences rarely stopped at one evening. The manager remained frozen between two worlds. The world of the customer is always right, and the world of internal memos labeled strategic benefactor. He glanced at Maya, noting how she neither argued, nor rose, nor shed a tear. Her silence unsettled him more than anger ever could. Maya straightened slightly, adjusting the waistline of her gown, a gesture so small it might have seemed meaningless. Yet under the chandelier, the orange fabric flared briefly like fire. Then she lifted her head and met Vanessa's eyes, as though no one else existed in the room. That gaze was no longer a lake, it was a mirror. And in that mirror, Vanessa suddenly saw herself, the rich girl, used to commanding, used to hearing "yes, ma'am," used to believing every chair should turn in her favor. For a brief, fragile second, a shiver ran down her spine, the feeling of stepping too close to the edge, but arrogance quickly smothered it. Vanessa tilted her chin and broke the silence. "Let's not allow confusion to disrupt tonight's event," she said evenly, her tone cold as glass. "This is our gala. This table belongs to us." Liam pressed the shutter again. Another shot. He didn't yet know how these photos would be used, but instinct whispered, "Keep them all. This is the beginning of something larger than tonight." In the center of it all, between diamonds and white linen, between the words "not meant for someone like you" and the stares slicing through the air, Dr. Maya Carter remained seated. Silent. Her dark eyes deep, unreadable. On the surface, she was just a humiliated guest. But deeper in a place only the storyteller could see, another door had quietly opened. Tonight at this table, someone thought they were putting Maya in her proper place. They didn't know that right here beneath this chandelier, the first line of a new story about power, dignity, and the cost of contempt was being written. No one in that room realized they were witnessing the beginning of an earthquake. Only one person did, and she sat perfectly still as if nothing had happened. Dr. Maya Carter tilted her glass of water slightly, watching tiny ripples glide across the clear surface. She didn't need to look up to feel the stares converging on her like stage lights trained on the center of a performance. But in this show, she wasn't the audience. She was the director. Across from her, Vanessa Kensington let out a soft laugh, the kind that belonged to someone certain she had just put another person in their place. "Are you going to handle this?" She turned to the event manager, her voice raised just enough for the whole table to hear. "We can't have just anyone sitting in the VIP section like this." The manager hesitated. His eyes lingered on the ivory nameplate in front of Maya, where the words Dr. Maya Carter gleamed under the candlelight. He knew that name. It belonged to the woman who had donated the largest endowment to the Kensington Hope Foundation for 3 consecutive years. But Vanessa was a Kensington. And at the Langston Grand, people said, "The Kensingtons are never wrong." He swallowed hard. "Ma'am, I think no need to think." Vanessa interrupted her voice, honey sweet with a blade hidden in the sugar. "You just need to act." The silence grew thicker. Some guests began to glance over. Others lowered their heads, pretending to adjust their napkins. Even the orchestra in the corner seemed to slow as if listening. Maya set her glass down without a sound. She tilted her head slightly, the low bun at her nape catching a glint of crystal light. "Are you sure you want to do this?" she asked softly, her tone calm as though discussing a menu detail. Vanessa's smile curved faintly. "I'm just maintaining order. Seems you're at the wrong table, Dr. Carter, is it?" Maya's gaze stayed steady, her dark eyes calm. She could smell it in Vanessa's every breath, that familiar scent of inherited power, not earned power. She had met people like this before, in boardrooms on live broadcasts across negotiation tables, where everyone thought they held the final word. And each time she had only needed to do one thing: wait. Behind them, photographer Liam Brooks kept shooting. His lens moved slowly, capturing every detail: the quiet fire in Maya's eyes, Vanessa's sharp smile, the name card trembling slightly in the air-conditioning draft. His instincts told him these photos were no longer just gala portraits. They were evidence of a moment when society's hierarchy revealed its truest face. "What are you taking pictures of?" Vanessa snapped, turning toward him. Liam stepped back slightly. "Event coverage, ma'am." "Then stick to people on the guest list," she replied coolly, turning away, leaving him caught between two worlds: obedience and dignity. Maya never looked away from Vanessa. In her mind, she was calculating. Not revenge, not retaliation. Timing. Years in finance had taught her that real power wasn't in how loud one spoke, but in knowing the exact second to stay silent. The manager took a step closer, lowering his voice. "Ma'am, perhaps we should—" He didn't finish because Vanessa reached forward, snatched the nameplate from in front of Maya, and dropped it. The ivory card spun 3 times through the air before landing on the tablecloth, striking a silver fork with a crisp metallic note. You see, Vanessa said, her lips curling into a tight smile. No name on the list, no seat at the table. Maya glanced at the card, then back at her. "Strange," she said softly. "People don't usually throw away the thing that feeds them." The words were quiet but hit hard. Several guests nearby lifted their heads. Vanessa blinked, her smile faltering for half a heartbeat before she forced a laugh, loud and brittle. "What are you talking about?" "That's ridiculous." Is it? Maya tilted her head, her eyes calm. "Some things only seem ridiculous until you realize what you're sitting on." Senator Whitfield frowned slightly. He didn't understand everything, but a chill crept down his spine, the unmistakable sense that something was about to turn. Vanessa waved her hand dismissively. "Fine, I'll have security check. Let's not let a minor incident ruin the evening." She spoke, but her voice trembled, not from fear, but anger. In her mind, her public image had to stay flawless, powerful, composed, in control. Yet the woman across from her, silent, poised, unyielding, was unraveling that image piece by piece. Maya bent down, picked up the nameplate, and set it neatly back in place. She smoothed the edge of the tablecloth, then, unnoticed, her thumb brushed along the edge of her black clutch. A small movement, but one that would echo far beyond the laughter in that room. At Carter Capital's office, just a few blocks away, the lights were still on. A computer screen flickered awake. Across it appeared a single line, "Endowment Protocol Active." No one in the ballroom knew what had just begun. But somewhere $3 billion had just been unlocked, and the flow of money was about to change course. Inside the room, Vanessa continued, her voice smooth with satisfaction. "We've had people try to sneak into the VIP section before. No matter who they are, they always end up leaving." Her tone brimmed with smug certainty. But Maya's eyes no longer mirrored her. They had become windows. Behind them the sky was shifting colors, and in that gaze Vanessa failed to see she was already standing before the storm she herself had summoned. Senator Whitfield turned to the person beside him and murmured, "I don't know what's happening, but I think tonight is one we'll remember." His words faded into the sound of the orchestra, changing to a light jazz tune. Yet in that room, no one heard anything beyond the pounding of their hearts and the weight of tension thick in the air. The manager, after one final moment of hesitation, stepped forward. "Miss Carter, I'm afraid we'll need you to step outside for verification." He stopped mid-sentence when Maya looked up. Her gaze froze him in place. Not angry, not threatening, just powerful. "Are you certain you want to do that?" she said, her voice low and measured before confirming who actually paid for this event. Silence fell. Absolute silence. Vanessa broke it with a laugh, loud and brittle. "Paid for it? Who do you think you are?" "Dr. Carter." Maya set her glass down and replied quietly. "The reason this event exists at all." Vanessa's face went still. Before she could respond, Maya leaned slightly forward, her tone soft as a whisper. "Don't worry. I'll let you write the ending yourselves. I only decide when to close the book." That was when Liam pressed the shutter once more. Click. One frame, two women, two worlds, and a quiet tremor beginning to ripple outward from table number 1. In the distance, the master of ceremonies announced the next performance, but no one at the table was listening, because everyone there, whether they understood it or not, felt the same thing. True power had just spoken without raising its voice. No one in that room heard the soft ping from the phone inside Dr. Maya Carter's black clutch, but a few blocks away in the glass tower of Carter Capital, a computer screen flared to life, and a line of cold white text appeared against the dark background, "Endowment Protocol Active." One light touch, one silent signal, yet it had just triggered a chain of events powerful enough to shake the entire financial structure behind the Kensington Foundation. Meanwhile, under the glitter of chandeliers in the ballroom, Maya sat perfectly still, her expression so calm it was almost unnerving. Beside her, the event manager, who had just received a message from the coordination team, frowned slightly. He glanced down at his phone and saw a strange internal notification, "Endowment account status under review." He did not understand what it meant, but his instincts told him something was slipping beyond his control. Vanessa Kensington still had no idea. She leaned toward her best friend, Clara Devine, a young entrepreneur currently live-streaming to her followers, and whispered with triumphant glee, "Who does she think she is? The whole city knows this gala belongs to my family." Clara gave a small laugh and raised her glass. "Let us call it a tiny incident with the stranger in orange." Their glasses touched, and the sound of crystal carried through the air like cold needles. Maya heard every word. Each one slid over her like a dull blade, scraping skin, but never breaking it. She looked up into the crystal lights overhead, her eyes reflecting thousands of fractured points of brightness. Inside her mind was moving faster than any song playing in that room. She had been silent long enough. All that was left was to wait. At Carter Capital's office, Rachel Nguyen, the executive assistant, practically jumped to her feet as the sequence of alerts flashed across her monitor. "Protocol 3B, she murmured, almost unable to believe what she was seeing. For the past 3 years, the endowment protocol had existed only as a line in policy documents never once used, unless Maya ordered the complete withdrawal of their funds from a partner. And once activated, every related transaction would automatically be locked within 60 seconds. Rachel drew a deep breath, her hands trembling as she hit confirm. Carter Capital confirms protocol in motion. The screen shifted color. One final line appeared slow and deliberate, like a sentence being handed down, endowment funds frozen. Rachel glanced at the clock. It was 8:46 in the evening. She knew that somewhere inside that ballroom, Maya had just made a move the Manhattan financial world would be talking about for years. Back at the Langston Grand table, number 1 felt like an unscripted stage. Senator Charles Whitfield could feel the shift in the air. It was not fear, it was anticipation, as if everyone subconsciously sensed that Maya Carter, the woman seated in front of them, held something far greater than the light above their heads. Vanessa kept talking, her voice rising with her irritation. "This is ridiculous. I do not understand why security is not here yet. Where are they?" The event manager, his hands now slightly unsteady, tried to keep his tone even. "Miss, I have just received an internal signal. It might be better to confirm with the organizers first." Confirm what Vanessa snapped her brows, drawing together as her voice sharpened. "She is not on the list." Maya placed her hands on the table slowly, then looked straight at him. "If you are planning to escort me out," she said, her voice low each word, precise, "make sure you have confirmed with the board first." The sentence landed heavier than the music from the orchestra. The manager looked up and met her eyes dark, yet clear, and something in them made him step back half a pace. He did not know why, but he believed her. Vanessa gave a thin laugh. "The board. They will thank me for protecting their image from uninvited guests." Maya's lips moved, not in a smile, more like the faint reaction to a child's remark. "Are you sure?" she asked. "They might be checking their phones right now." And indeed, on the 40th floor of the Kensington Hope Foundation headquarters, several phones began ringing, almost in unison. Board members from Carolyn Myers to Henry Whitfield all received the same alert: immediate board notice endowment account. Frozen review pending under Section 14.3, initiated by Dr. Maya Carter. Caroline stared at her screen in shock. She actually triggered it. Henry Whitfield, the only one who had ever openly supported Maya, leaned back in his chair and murmured, "And she never does anything she has not already calculated." Back in the ballroom, Vanessa still had no idea what was unfolding above her. She clung to the illusion of control. "Call security," She snapped at the manager, her tone unmistakably commanding. But he did not move. Instead, he was staring at his phone, where a new message had appeared. Board alert, stand down until further notice. He swallowed. Miss Vanessa, I am afraid there is an order to pause. Vanessa glared at him. Pause what? An instruction from the board, miss. I am not allowed to interfere. Silence dropped over the table. Some guests began trading confused glances. Clara lifted her head, looking around. What is going on? Senator Whitfield set his glass down slowly, his voice rough. I do not think she is someone we should be challenging. Vanessa still refused to accept it. What kind of joke is this? She muttered, yanking out her phone. The screen was flooded with urgent alerts. Account review, endowment, frozen funds, locked press inquiry, immediate statement required. The color drained from her face. Maya watched her, then spoke in a voice that sounded almost like a verdict being read aloud. You have been very determined to have me removed from this table. But it seems you forgot this table only exists because of me. Vanessa's mouth opened, but no words came. She saw something in Maya's eyes, not anger, but the weight of someone holding the scales. Maya lowered her gaze, calmly picked up her clutch, opened it, and let her fingertips slide across the screen in one simple motion. On Rachel's phone at Carter Capital, a new notification appeared. Step 2 authorized external notification. Within a single minute, Carter Capital's automated public relations system pushed an official statement to more than 20 of the largest media outlets in the country. Carter Capital to initiate review of a $3 billion endowment at Kensington Hope Foundation due to breach of ethical standards. While Vanessa was still staring blankly at her screen, Maya closed the clutch and set it gently back on the table, then smiled for the first time that evening. It was a quiet smile sharpened by patience, like a blade tempered over time. You believed you had the power to remove me from this place, she said, her tone so calm it was almost frightening. But tonight, I have only done one thing. I have allowed you to remove yourselves from the very foundation you are standing on. Outside the banquet hall, the master of ceremonies cheerfully announced that the auction was about to begin, but at table number 1, everything had changed. No one ate. No one spoke. The only sound was a soft click as Liam took another photo. He looked through his lens, and in that frame, Maya Carter sat bathed in candlelight, as steady as a storm smiling on the horizon. Because in that moment, the balance of power had shifted. The air in the ballroom had grown thick like the haze after fireworks, beautiful, dazzling, but suffocating. Whispers rippled through the crowd in waves, small at first, then swelling toward a storm. Everyone could sense that something was wrong. Everyone except Vanessa Kensington, who still hadn't realized the tide had reached the heels of her designer shoes. She kept smiling that arrogant smile of someone who believed reputation was an immortal shield. There's really no need to make this a big deal, Vanessa said sweetly, though every word sliced through the air. I just want tonight to go exactly as planned. No confusion, no misplaced guests. Maya Carter said nothing. It wasn't the silence of fear, but the silence of someone waiting for the right moment to speak, and when she did, everything else would stop. The young waiter refilling Vanessa's glass trembled slightly. He didn't fully understand what was happening, but he could feel it. The woman in the orange gown across the table carried an energy that no Kensington name or diamond could ever buy. We should call security, said Clara Devine, Vanessa's friend, leaning closer. If she's really not on the list, that's a security issue. Vanessa nodded, signaling the event manager. Well, what are you waiting for? The manager hesitated, eyes still locked on his phone. Internal alerts kept flashing across the screenboard alert. Endowment under suspension. Media monitoring required. He tried to hide it, but his hands betrayed him. Miss, it seems there's a development from the board. No excuses. Vanessa snapped, her tone cutting sharp. I want her removed from this table immediately. Maya lifted her head slightly. The chandelier light reflected in her eyes like liquid gold, bright and cold. You seem very confident in your right to remove people from the table, she said softly, her voice even and low, flowing like a river beneath ice. But have you ever asked yourself who actually bought the table? Vanessa froze. What do you mean by that? Maya didn't answer right away. She picked up her napkin, folded it carefully into a small triangle, then placed it to the right of her silver plate. The gesture was slow, deliberate, but every movement cut deeper than a knife. There are things Miss Kensington Maya said that people only understand when the lights go out, when the party ends, and when the financial statements appear. A faint scraping sound came from the end of the table. Senator Charles Whitfield had shifted his chair, his gaze fixed on Vanessa, his voice calm, but edged with warning. You should be careful, Vanessa, he said quietly. I believe Miss Carter has a reason to sit here. A reason? Vanessa scoffed. Perhaps you've forgotten who the main sponsor of tonight's event is. No, he replied, voice dropping lower. I think it's you who's forgotten. Maya looked at him, gave a small nod of gratitude, then turned back to Vanessa. You think power means being invited here? Maya said, her gaze cutting through the layer of diamonds around Vanessa's neck. Having your name printed on a guest list, making others stand up in fear of losing their seat. She paused. No. Power is when I don't need an invitation, and they still set a chair for me. The words froze the entire table. No one even dared to breathe. Vanessa blinked, then let out a brittle laugh. Oh, how fascinating. I don't know where they teach such delusion, but I do know this in this room. You don't belong. Maya leaned back slightly, exhaled slowly. You're right, she said. Her smile was thin, sharp, like a blade dipped in gold. I don't belong to this room. I belong to the system that keeps it from collapsing. A waiter dropped a spoon, the metallic clang slicing through the silence before fading away. What are you talking about? Vanessa demanded, her voice unsteady. You enjoy sitting at the table of honor, Maya said, reaching down for her small black clutch and opening it with care. And I... She continued, her fingertip gliding across the phone screen, am the one who writes the check that makes it possible. The event manager's phone vibrated violently. He looked down to see red letters flashing across the screen. Endowment withdrawal, pending confirmed donor ID Carter Capital. His eyes widened as he looked from Maya to Vanessa. Vanessa noticed his expression, her pulse skipping. What is it? He swallowed hard. Carter Capital is our principal benefactor, miss. The table fell into stunned silence. Even the orchestra seemed to fade into the background. Vanessa stared at Maya, the color draining from her face. You're lying. That's impossible. Maya leaned forward slightly, her voice low but resonating louder than any microphone. You said I came here seeking power. She paused, eyes locked on Vanessa. You're mistaken. I am power. The words struck like a hammer against marble, echoing through every heart at the table. A cold draft swept through the room as the ballroom doors opened, and in the doorway stood a woman in a black suit, Alexis Turner, attorney for Carter Capital. She didn't speak, only nodded toward Maya. In her hand was a thick folder, bound in silver clips that gleamed under the lights. Vanessa spun around, nearly shouting, "Who gave you permission to enter?" Alexis didn't answer. She simply walked to the edge of the hall and stood still, the period at the end of a sentence the Kensingtons could no longer control. Maya didn't stand. She simply turned her wrist, lifted her glass of water, and said in a calm, resonant tone, "You said you were maintaining order. I'm maintaining the truth." A guest at the next table whispered, "Who is she?" Another replied softly, "The woman who signed the $3 billion check." Vanessa drew a deep breath, trying to hold her composure, but her hand on the glass trembled slightly. She wanted to strike back, to reclaim control, but her own heartbeat thundered too loud for her to find her voice. Maya set the glass down and stood. The chandelier's golden light cascaded over her orange gown, wrapping her in metallic glow. "You may think this is a performance," Maya said slowly. "But I'm not performing. I'm simply pulling the plug." Vanessa narrowed her eyes. "You wouldn't dare." "No," Maya interrupted gently. "I already have. The moment you picked up my name card and threw it away." A strange, heavy stillness filled the room. Then, like falling dominoes, the phones of staff members, board executives, even the master of ceremonies on stage, all began to vibrate at once, each displaying the same logo, the same message from Carter Capital Endowment withdrawal, effective immediately. The music stopped. The murmurs shattered like cracked glass. Vanessa's eyes widened. No, that's impossible." She turned to the manager, her voice breaking. "Is this real?" He nodded, still trembling. "All endowment accounts have been frozen." "Miss?" Maya smiled softly. "You see, Vanessa," she said, her voice so light it could barely be heard over the stunned silence, "some people spend their lives trying to sit close to power, while power simply sits still and lets them destroy themselves." That line Liam Brooks would later recall in hundreds of interviews, because right after that, he pressed the shutter. 3 clicks, 3 heartbeats, a woman standing tall beneath golden light, and an empire beginning to crack in silence. The host's voice rang out from a distance, still steady and upbeat. "Ladies and gentlemen, please get ready for the most important auction of the night." But at table number 1, no one heard a thing anymore. Confused eyes, trembling fingers sliding across phone screens, pale faces glowing under crystal light. Something invisible had just been pulled out of the air, as if the room had suddenly lost its gravity. Vanessa Kensington sat frozen, staring at the notification on her phone, "Endowment funds withdrawn." The words were cold and flat, but their weight slammed straight into her chest. She forced herself to swallow, then let out a short, cracked laugh, her voice uneven. "You would not dare," she muttered. "You are just trying to scare me, right, Dr. Maya?" Carter tilted her head slightly, the warm light casting half her face in gold and the other half in shadow. "You think I need to scare you?" She rose slowly, every movement carrying the icy composure of someone who had already made her decision and was now simply watching the consequences unfold. Her burnt orange satin gown rippled as she moved, catching the light like flickers of flame. With each step, the whispers around the table died away. A waiter stepped aside to let her pass. Senator Whitfield placed a hand on the table, as if about to speak, then drew it back and gave a small nod instead, as though acknowledging a truth revealing itself in front of him. Vanessa reached out her voice, shaking but still trying to sound defiant. "What are you going to do?" 'cause a scene in the middle of the gala, Maya stopped facing her. "No," she replied, her voice soft but ringing clearly through the space. "I am simply taking back what belongs to me." Then she turned and walked toward the stage. The entire ballroom seemed to tilt in her direction, attention shifting with each step she took. The golden lights began to converge as if drawn to a new center. The master of ceremonies looked up, hesitating, as he saw the guest approaching. Ma'am, this area is reserved for those who have the right to speak." Maya cut in. Her voice was not loud, yet it silenced his microphone instantly. The technician behind the soundboard scrambled to lower the music, though his heart was pounding for reasons he could not explain. Maya mounted the small steps to the stage and stepped into the bright white spotlight. The room felt so quiet you could hear people breathing. She faced the hundreds of guests before her, the same faces that had been lifting glasses and offering toasts minutes earlier, now staring at her as if they were witnessing the impossible. "Before you announce that number," she began, her voice calm as her gaze swept the hall, "please subtract $3 billion. 1 second. 2 seconds. Then the murmur rose, sweeping through the crowd like wind across a sea of bodies. Maya continued, her tone clear, every word chosen with precision. "Carter Capital is officially withdrawing its entire endowment from the Kensington Hope Foundation, effective immediately. The sponsorship agreement is terminated. The accounts are frozen, and repayment will be requested within 30 days in accordance with the signed terms." Vanessa shot up from her seat, shouting, "You cannot do that. This is our night." Maya looked down at her, her eyes no longer angry, only cold. "No," she said. "This is your consequence." Alexis Turner. Maya's attorney emerged from the wings with the thick folder in her hand. She set it on the podium and opened to the first page, reading smoothly, as if she had prepared for this moment all along. "Official statement from Carter Capital. Under Clause 14.3 of the Endowment Agreement, any ethical violation that harms the reputation of the donor grants immediate termination of the contract." Maya stood beside her, the light catching the gold chain at her neck, and her voice cut gently through the legal language. "Tonight it is not Carter Capital withdrawing money. It is integrity withdrawing its trust." The microphone hissed softly, then went quiet. The entire room stood still. A few guests lowered their heads. Others whispered to each other, faces stunned. Online reporters live streaming the event began receiving alerts. Breaking news: $3 billion endowment withdrawn mid-gala. Vanessa spun in the middle of that noise, like someone who had just had the ground pulled out from under her. She tried to speak, but the words lodged in her throat. You cannot not over a single comment," she choked out. Maya answered her voice, steady each word, dropping like a stone. Sometimes a single sentence is enough to measure the character of an entire system. At the far end of the room, Senator Whitfield rose to his feet, adjusted his tie, glanced at his fellow donors and said quietly, "Perhaps we have just witnessed the end of an era." Liam Brooks's camera flashed again and again. He captured each moment: Maya at the podium, Vanessa below Alexis, handing documents to the board, and the phones lighting up all along the VIP tables. Maya turned her gaze, passing over Vanessa, and then stopping. "You asked me why," she said slowly, loud enough for the entire room to hear. "Because respect is not optional. It is the foundation. And tonight this room failed at the most basic thing." She set the microphone down gently, as if placing the final seal on a verdict. Then she walked off the stage. Behind her, the chatter exploded. What did she just say? $3 billion. My God, that fund survives on that money. Vanessa remained where she stood, face drained of color, fingers digging into the edge of the table, her lips moving soundlessly. Impossible, impossible. But the music had stopped. There was no glittering atmosphere left to hide the truth. The name Kensington Hope Foundation had just been cut off from its lifeline, right in the middle of its own celebration. She spun around and screamed toward Maya, who was stepping down from the stage. "You cannot do this. You will regret it." Maya paused in the aisle. She did not turn back. Her voice carried soft, yet resonant, like metal striking marble. "No, Vanessa. But perhaps you will." Then she walked on. Waiters, the host, the band, the guests. Everyone stood motionless watching her go. Each step she took seemed to leave a trail of fire behind her, sketching a clear path through the chaos, one woman, one decision, and a world being forced to relearn the meaning of respect. At the back of the room, Alexis Turner pulled out her phone and sent one final message to the communications team. Press release confirmed. Carter Capital officially withdraws $3 billion from Kensington Hope Foundation. The room erupted with phone alerts, doors slamming open, reporters rushing in from outside. And in the middle of all that noise, Maya Carter remained upright, her head held high. When the last beam of light swept across the room, there was only one image that truly remained: a woman in a blazing orange gown standing in the room where power had just changed hands, and a single sentence that had made $3 billion vanish from an old world. The last sound Maya heard as she stepped off the stage was the faint hiss of the microphone before it went completely silent. No more music, no more applause, only the quickened breaths, the scattered whispers, and the eerie sense that all the air in the room had been sucked out, along with the $3 billion that had just vanished. She walked across the polished wooden floor, the chandeliers above reflecting off her burnt orange satin gown. Every step she took made a dry, distinct sound, not loud, but sharp enough that everyone in the room followed it. Behind her, Vanessa Kensington stood frozen beside the empty chair. Her fingers clenched the stem of her wine glass so tightly they had turned white. Under the dim light, the diamonds around her neck no longer sparkled. They only reflected the distorted face of a woman realizing she no longer held any real power. Senator Charles Whitfield exhaled deeply, dabbing his forehead with a napkin. He whispered to the man beside him, "I've seen political scandals before, but never a collapse this silent." His friend nodded. Yes, and it all started with a single sentence that seemed harmless. At the press table, a young editor whispered to her colleague, "Keep filming, capture everything. This isn't just about money, it's about dignity." At table number 1, the event manager stood motionless, his phone vibrating endlessly in his hand. On the screen, line after line appeared, each one striking at the foundation of power he had thought unshakable. Endowment funds frozen, board emergency meeting required, public relations alert, global outlets requesting comment. He looked up at Maya, who was now walking slowly down the center aisle, and in that moment he understood that he was witnessing something that would be remembered forever. Not as a financial withdrawal, but as a shift in power, where one woman didn't need to raise her voice to make an empire bow. At a nearby table, a middle-aged couple whispered to each other. Did she just say, "Respect is not optional"? She did. And she's right. The husband nodded. "I've donated to this foundation for 10 years, but after what I've seen tonight, maybe it's time to reconsider who we're really supporting." That quiet remark spread like a spark. Within minutes, dozens of other donors began pulling out their phones, not to take photos but to send messages. Suspend the donation. Verify ethical standards. Hold new pledges. Small separate signals that together formed an unseen wave, now pulling the Gala down beneath its glittering surface. Across the room, Alexis Turner Meyer's attorney stood near the main entrance, her eyes fixed on her client. Her phone buzzed with a new message from headquarters. Carter Capital confirms media coverage now spreading nationwide. Alexis slipped her phone away and took a step forward just as Meyer passed by. "Are you sure you want to leave through the main doors?" she asked softly. Meyer paused, smiled faintly. "Of course. I came in through the front door, and I'll leave through the same. No one has the right to tell me to use the back just because they can't handle the truth." The answer made Alexis nod her eyes, glinting with quiet pride. Behind them, Vanessa suddenly shouted, her hoarse voice shattering the tense stillness. "Stop her! She can't do this. This is the Kensington Gala." No one moved. The security staff exchanged uneasy glances. The event manager simply shook his head. "No, ma'am. We've just received the latest directive from the board. No one is to obstruct Dr. Carter." Vanessa's eyes widened, her voice trembling between rage and panic. "She can't steal our reputation just because her ego got bruised." From a distance, Meyer stopped and turned around. Her voice was light, but it cut through the air like a blade. "Reputation can't be stolen. It can only be stripped bare." The silence that followed was heavy and absolute. Then Meyer turned away and continued walking each step, affirming one thing she didn't need: to win the argument she had already won by standing up. The ballroom doors swung open. Light from the hallway flooded in, not the warm gold of the Gala, but the cold white light of reality. She stepped through into the marble lobby of the Langston Grand Hotel. The air outside was cool, but not peaceful. A crowd of reporters was already waiting, tipped off by alerts sent from inside. They pressed forward, microphones, raised cameras flashing. "Miss Carter, did you really withdraw $3 billion from the Kensington Foundation? Is this an act of personal retaliation? Can you comment on the conflict with Vanessa Kensington?" Meyer stopped in the center of the lobby. The flashlights burst continuously, illuminating her face. Calm, poised, effortless. She lifted her chin and spoke clearly, slowly, without a microphone. "Yes, I confirm the withdrawal took effect 15 minutes ago." The crowd erupted, microphones thrust toward her. But why Meyer looked around, her eyes shining under the glare of the cameras. Because respect is not a choice. It is an obligation. And tonight, that obligation was forgotten. No one could say anything. She turned to Alexis and nodded. Alexis pulled a thick envelope from her leather briefcase and held it up for the cameras. "This is the official notice delivered to the Kensington Hope Foundation Board of Directors. The contractual clauses have been activated. The full endowment must be repaid within 30 days. The murmurs exploded. Some reporters turned away to make phone calls. In the chaos, Meyer quietly closed her clutch and looked at the cameras one last time. "This isn't a war," she said. "It's a reminder that dignity has no monetary value, but losing it will cost you everything." Then she turned and walked toward the revolving glass doors. The night air of Manhattan rushed in, cold, clear, and free. Behind her the noise continued, but it was fading. Vanessa stumbled to the edge of the lobby, stopping when she saw Meyer stepping into the waiting black sedan. The streetlight fell across her face, revealing something no one had ever seen on Vanessa Kensington before: fear. "You didn't have to do this," she cried, her voice breaking. Do you know what you've done? The entire foundation, all those people depend on it." Maya sat in the car with the door open, turned back and said softly, just loud enough for Vanessa to hear, "I didn't destroy a foundation. I simply stopped feeding the contempt it chose to live on." Then the door closed. The car pulled away its red taillights, cutting through the thin mist of the night. Reflected in that red glow on the marble floor was the image of a woman walking out of their world, carrying her self-respect as the most powerful weapon money could never buy. The black sedan glided down the glowing streets of Manhattan, leaving behind the chaos of a gala in ruins. The blare of car horns, the relentless clicking of camera shutters, and the shouting of voices all merged into a chaotic symphony, a soundtrack of a world that had just lost its balance. Inside the car there was only silence. Dr. Maya Carter sat back against the seat, her hand resting softly on her lap. The streetlight streamed through the glass, casting deep, golden streaks across her face, calm, distant, and proud. She said nothing. She didn't smile. She simply gazed out the window, watching the skyscrapers shimmer in reflection, as if the city itself were being forced to look inward. "Are you all right?" Alexis Turner asked from the front seat, turning her head slightly. Maya nodded. "I am. Just a little regretful." "Regretful?" "Yes. Regretful for the people in that room. They have no idea what they've just lost." Her voice was low but not sad. It carried the tone of someone who understood the cost of arrogance too well, and could only pity those who still hadn't learned the lesson. Alexis stayed quiet. She knew Maya wasn't talking about money, not the $3 billion, not the contract, but about the last chance for those people in their glittering halls to relearn the meaning of respect. The car slowed as it approached an intersection. In the rearview mirror, Vanessa Kensington could be seen running out of the hotel, her heels striking sharply against the marble floor. She still carried her diamond-studded clutch, though now it seemed less an accessory and more a weight dragging her down. "Wait!" Vanessa shouted. The driver glanced at Maya in the mirror. Maya raised her hand slightly. "Stop." The door opened, and cold air rushed in. Vanessa leaned forward, breathing hard, her eyes a mix of anger and desperation. "You didn't have to do this," she said quickly, her voice trembling. "Do you know how many people depend on that endowment? How many families? How many projects will collapse?" Because of this, Maya sat still, one hand on her lap, the other resting lightly on the car door. "Interesting," she said softly. "Now you remember those people. 30 minutes ago, all you remembered was the VIP table." Vanessa clenched her fists, trying to steady her voice. "I didn't mean to offend you. It was a misunderstanding, just a choice of words. You know I only wanted things to stay proper. Proper." Maya repeated her tone, barely above a whisper, but her eyes glinted like steel. "Proper by whose standards, Vanessa? What standard says that someone like me doesn't belong at table number 1? What standard gives the Kensingtons the right to define someone else's dignity?" Vanessa opened her mouth, but no words came. Maya continued, her voice lower now, sharp as a blade. "You said you wanted to protect the Foundation's image, but an image built on humiliation will always shatter. You wanted to protect your family's name, but a true name is built on actions, not evening gowns." Vanessa blinked, and for the first time that night, her confidence cracked. "You're destroying everything," she whispered. "No," Maya replied. "I'm simply showing the world what it already was." A heavy silence fell between them. The flashes from reporters' cameras reflected off the glass, showing two faces, one calm, one broken. Maya tilted her head, her voice softening, though not in sympathy. Vanessa, let me ask you something. If tonight the person you humiliated wasn't me, but a waitress, would you have spoken up? Vanessa stayed silent. If she had been thrown out of that table just for wearing the wrong color dress, would you have said, "Don't do that"? Again, silence. Maya exhaled slowly, nodding once. I thought so. Then she looked directly into Vanessa's eyes. You don't need to apologize to me. You need to apologize to the people you don't even notice. Vanessa swallowed hard, her voice cracking. You think you've won. You'll lose friends, partners. Everyone will say you went too far, that you overreacted. Maya smiled faintly, her eyes soft but cold. You're wrong. I didn't react. I acted. And that's the difference people like you never understand. She leaned forward slightly, her voice dropping to a calm, deliberate warning. You have 30 days to return the remaining funds. Use that time to fix what you can, because after that, the court will handle the rest. Vanessa's lips parted, but nothing came out. Maya tapped her fingers lightly on the door. Driver. The door closed. The car rolled forward, leaving Vanessa standing there in the cold wind under the flashing lights, surrounded by the storm she had summoned herself. Inside, Maya watched through the rear-view mirror as Vanessa's figure grew smaller and smaller. There was no anger left, only emptiness. Alexis turned and said softly, You did the right thing. Maya shook her head. It's not about being right or wrong, Alexis. It's about waking them up. And if they don't wake up, then they'll disappear. Power never vanishes. It just changes hands. The words lingered in the quiet car like a prophecy. Maya opened her phone messages, flooding in, media coverage trending #1, public support rising fast, board meeting scheduled for 8 in the morning. She read them all, then turned off the screen. She didn't need more news. The world had already understood what she wanted to say, not through noise, but through action. The streetlights continued to glide past the window, washing her face in moving light. In that stillness, her mind drifted back to years ago, to the days she was an intern, mistaken for a waitress, to the times she'd been told she didn't belong in boardrooms because of her status. She remembered the sting of it, bitter but useful, because that was the day she had promised herself, if she ever had power, she would use it to make those rooms see differently. And tonight she had done exactly that. The car turned onto Park Avenue. Manhattan sparkled like a map of opportunity, but Maya didn't see glamour. She saw reflection, the light of truth that among billion-dollar towers respect remained the rarest currency, one too many still didn't know how to spend. Alexis glanced at her through the mirror. You know they'll write about this. Some will hate you. Maya's lips curved into a quiet smile. I don't need to be liked. I just need to be understood. She turned back toward the window, watching the city lights slide past. Sometimes, she said softly, the only way to make people understand the value of respect is to take it away. Outside, the wind had begun to rise. The sedan crossed the intersection, its red tail lights blending into the flow of Manhattan traffic. Behind them, the Kensington Gala was still drowning in chaos. But ahead, Maya Carter was moving toward a place where power no longer meant domination. It meant the quiet strength of a woman who chose to walk away and left the entire world standing still to watch. The next morning, the city of Manhattan woke up to its usual chorus of car horns. But no one was talking about the weather or the stock market. Every conversation, from the little corner coffee shop to the 50th floor of the financial towers revolved around a single name, Dr. Maya Carter. The morning papers dropped onto newsstands along Madison Avenue all carried the same bold headline stretched across a white background. CEO pulls $3 billion from Kensington Fund. After humiliating comment beneath it was a photo of Maya standing at the center of the stage the night before, crystal light pouring over her burnt orange satin gown. Her face composed, her eyes fixed on the audience beside it. Another photograph captured the exact moment Vanessa Kensington collapsed into her chair, her hand still gripping her wine glass. The two images placed side by side told the full story without needing any editorial. In a small cafe on 47th Street, two young women sat by the window, sipping lattes as they scrolled through their phones. She did not scream. She did not lash out. She just said exactly 4 words. One of them murmured admiration in her voice. "I am power," and the whole room went silent. The other nodded, her eyes shining. She made them understand that silence has its own weight. Not far away, a group of office workers clustered around the coffee machine. Have you seen it? The video where she says, "Respect is not optional," already has more than 2 million views. One of them said, "That is a different level. Some people don't need to shout to make the whole world listen." Another added. And the best part is, she did not attack anyone, she just let the truth do the work. Everyone retold the story in their own way, but they all shared the same feeling awe at her composure. Across town, on the 40th floor of the Kensington Hope Foundation, the air in the conference room felt thick enough to explode. Coffee cups sat untouched, and growing cold papers were stacked in messy piles. Phones rang without pause. Chief Executive Officer Caroline Myers looked up at the large screen where headline after headline rolled by. "We lost 4 more donors overnight," she said, her voice tight. "Total withdrawn commitments have already climbed past 5 billion. Henry Whitfield, a long-standing board member and the only one who had ever publicly defended Maya, set his pen down, his expression grave. "She gave us a chance to make this right," he said. "We didn't listen, and now there is nothing left to hold on to." A chance Vanessa shot back dark circles under her eyes after a sleepless night. "She humiliated us in front of the entire public. I just said one sentence, and that sentence Henry cut in is what brought our entire system down, because it was not just a sentence, Vanessa, it was the symptom of an attitude we have allowed to grow here for far too long." The room fell into silence. Vanessa gripped her pen so hard, her hand trembled, her face rigid, but her fingers shaking. "My father will not let this go," she whispered. Caroline looked up her tone. "Icy, your father cannot buy back honor with money. Vanessa, no one can." On the wall-mounted television, the morning news was broadcasting a live segment. The anchor stared into the camera with a serious expression. "We are witnessing a turning point in American corporate culture, a moment when a leader did not need legal authority to draw an ethical line. The phrase 'respect is not optional' has become a viral slogan across social media, now printed on shirts, posters, and even quoted in morning meetings at dozens of companies." Vanessa bit her lip and switched off the screen. "They are turning her into a hero," she said bitterly. "No." Henry replied, eyes still on the newspaper in his hands. "She does not need them to turn her into anything. She already was a hero. We were just too slow to see it." In the middle of that media storm, Maya Carter remained silent. She gave no interviews, posted nothing, issued no statements. Yet her silence was the strongest response of all. In her high-rise penthouse, Maya stood by the window looking down at the city, the morning light gliding over the glass towers, washing across her face. Like gentle waves on her desk lay an open newspaper with a headline in large print, "Carter when silence is also power." Her phone buzzed with a message from Alexis Turner. "The media are requesting a statement. Do you want me to set something up?" Maya replied, "No need. Let the images from last night speak for me." She set the phone down and drew a slow breath, thinking of her mother, the woman who once worked in a tiny convenience store and always said, "If they will not invite you to their table, then build your own." And Maya smiled. On social media, the hashtags number Maya Carter, number respect is not optional, and number endowment protocol spread like wildfire. A video posted by photographer Liam Brooks, capturing the exact moment Vanessa picked up the name card, and the instant Maya said, "I am power," had already passed 10 million views by late morning. Liam was invited to a midday podcast interview, his voice steady and full of quiet emotion. "I have shot hundreds of events, but I have never seen anyone so calm that the whole room fell silent around them," he said when she spoke that line. "I knew I was photographing history." The host asked, "What do you think shook people the most?" Liam answered without hesitation that she did not have to do anything dramatic. She just stood there and let them reveal how small they really were. That afternoon at a high school in Harlem, a young teacher named Danielle Woods played the video of Maya's speech for her class. When the clip ended, she turned to her students. "Do you see," she said, "this is not just about wealth or poverty. This is a lesson in self-respect. Some people are born with VIP seats, but there are others like her who build an entirely new table and invite others to sit with them." The class applauded. A black boy stood up, his eyes shining. "I want to grow up to be like Miss Carter," he declared. That night on the political talk show, the viewpoint experts argued fiercely. One commentator said, "She might have triggered the biggest philanthropic crisis of the decade." Another replied, "No. She may have started an ethical revolution, one where people understand that power no longer belongs only to the one who signs the check, but also to the one who dares to set conditions for honor at the bottom of the screen." A banner scrolled beneath the topic line from a single sentence: "A culture of respect returns." As night fell, Maya was still standing by the window, watching the stream of headlights below. She knew the story no longer belonged to her alone. It had become a voice for thousands of people who had been belittled, pushed aside, told, "This table is not for someone like you." Now those very people were messaging, writing and sharing that video, not just in admiration, but as a declaration. "We belong at this table too." And Maya smiled softly, as if speaking to herself. That is the real power, when a single action teaches the world how to be human again. The city lights glimmered in her eyes like flecks of molten gold. She turned away and walked back into the warm darkness of the room, leaving behind a city still glowing in the aftershock of a woman who made power fall silent just to listen. 3 days later, what had once been called a Gala incident had transformed into a movement. From major corporations to schools across the country, people were now talking about the Carter effect, an open dialogue about dignity, empathy, and moral boundaries in a world built on power. At the offices of the Kensington Hope Foundation, the meeting room was bright but empty. The leather chairs that once seated the elite were now gathering dust. A young employee whispered, People are still donating, but now it's to the Carter Foundation. Vanessa heard it, but didn't respond. She sat still, eyes fixed on the window, where the word Kensington reflected faintly against the sky, distorted, fading, and blurred. Meanwhile, in North Harlem, warm yellow light poured from the windows of an old train station, now adorned with a new sign that read, Carter Foundation Integrity in Action. Inside the space buzzed with laughter and the soft rhythm of jazz. Maya Carter stood among a circle of teachers, students, workers, and artists. No microphones, no elevated stage, just a long table where everyone sat as equals. 3 months ago, I was told there were tables not meant for people like me, Maya said, with a gentle smile, her voice calm and rich. So I built a new table and made it longer, so there's room for everyone. The entire room erupted in applause. The sound carried beyond the old brick walls, rising into the Harlem night, becoming a message that echoed across the world. Respect is not a privilege. It is the foundation of humanity. 2 months later, the first gala of the Carter Foundation was held inside the old Harlem train station, a place once covered in the dust of time, now glowing under warm golden lights. There was no red carpet, no tiered seating, only large round tables, where business leaders sat beside teachers and artists, shared seats with workers. In the midst of that space, Dr. Maya Carter stepped onto a low wooden platform, dressed in a copper-orange suit. There were no blinding stage lights, only real faces looking at her with quiet respect. Tonight, she said, her voice steady and measured, flowing with the rhythm of the jazz drums behind her. We are not here to celebrate wealth. We are here to celebrate dignity. No one is born with a seat at the table of honor. We build it together with kindness. The applause rose like waves. At the corner of the room, Liam Brooks lifted his camera and captured the moment. Maya's eyes shining, surrounded by hundreds of genuine smiles, with no one sitting in a regular guest section anymore. And if anyone ever tells you there is no place for you, she concluded, don't ask for a chair. Build a new table and let everyone sit together. The music swelled, and the entire room rose to their feet. In that moment, there were no guests, no hosts, only people together. And there true power had found its new form, equal kind, and enduring as light itself. From the perspective of a leadership ethics expert, the story of Dr. Maya Carter is not just a clash between two levels of power. It is a reminder of the ultimate limit of arrogance and the enduring value of respect. In a world where money can buy almost anything, dignity remains the one thing that cannot be priced, and those who understand that first are the ones who will still stand tall when the lights go out. True power is not measured by the amount you withdraw or sign, but by how you choose to remain silent when the world challenges your integrity. If you believe that respect is not a favor to be granted, but the foundation that allows humanity to exist together, press like to spread that message and subscribe so you do not miss the stories where justice is rewritten through steadfast conviction. And finally, comment below with the phrase that reflects your belief, hold your dignity.